Hello, and welcome to another episode of Pull Up 3. I am Paragon Don,
I'm Janae.
And I'm Jay Trent.
and today with us to talk about the New York Liberty, we have Kevin Lewis of the 9450.
What up? What it is was popping. It's such a great honor once again, chopping it up with you guys and talking New York Liberty basketball. I know it wasn't the season that New York Liberty fans was anticipating, but we're here regardless, and I cannot wait to, chop it up and talk about what happened throughout the season or what didn't happen throughout the season.
Well, I guess then we could just jump right into it. Obviously, you go into the season, and I think everyone kind of penciled in a Lynx Liberty matchup, finals matchup, and then none of it ended up coming into fruition. Um, Both teams started off extremely hot coming out the gates. I think the Liberty ended up winning like their first like 7 games, if I'm not mistaken, and then JJ gets hurt,
9.
or nine, excuse me. They win their first games. JJ gets hurt. Stewie misses time. Sabrina ends up having like an MVP-esque season towards the middle, and then she kind of like teeters off somewhat. JJ comes back. Stewie comes back. It doesn't really click in the same way that it did originally. And then you end up having the Phoenix series, of course, where they end up making it to game 3. But Stewie ended up being the only person to score in the fourth after having a classic Stewie game. Um, so, uh, how are your feelings about the team during the different points of the season? And what are your with the, obviously y'all are getting a new coach. So what are your expectations going forward, at least for the upcoming season?
Well, I want to kind of first start off with how inconsistent the New York Liberty were after all of the injuries started to succumb um, towards the middle and end of the season. So the biggest thing, or well, even before that, I want to start off on how amazing the offseason was for them after winning the championship. You pick up a crucial point guard in Natasha Cloud, who was traded from Phoenix to Connecticut and then from Connecticut to New York. And it's almost instant gratification to all New York Liberty fans saying, well, we actually get an upgrade at point guard with the exit of Courtney Vandersloot. And Courtney Vandersloot had been tremendous in the previous 2 years with the New York Liberty, obviously as a result, winning the championship in 2024. But I think that the general manager and president, Jonathan Kolb, was looking for someone who was obviously, for lack of better terms, younger. Not to say that Natasha Cloud is any younger than Courtney Vandersloot from a basketball standpoint, but obviously she is younger, a little bit fresher legs, things of that nature, from a defensive perspective. And it was something that was incredibly encouraging for the New York Liberty fans to start off. You have Rebekah Gardner coming back after the Achilles injury. She spent the whole year off getting that rectified and looked really good in the beginning of the season. You had a Marine Johannes that came back after taking a year off. And everybody knows that the reason why she took that year off is because she was preparing for the Olympics in 2024, but she comes back in 2025 ready to go. And then you pick up, Izzy Harrison from Chicago, who was, from the end of the season, looking pretty good in Chicago. And then, of course, those minutes, end up not being what she thought. And signing with New York was a huge piece. So the beginning of it, everything on paper looked good. It sounded good. A lot of, I would say, people who aren't as enthusiastic about the New York Liberty, already coined the whole super team thing And obviously, I mean that's been a buzzword, for the past 2 or 3 years with the New York Liberty, which is fine. I mean, to be honest with you, you're not. I mean, what's that phrase? You're not trying if you ain't cheating. So that's that's kind of like how I put it. Just from a free agency and from a roster makeup standpoint. So I thought that from a roster standpoint, they looked extremely good. And the proof started well very early. Natasha Cloud was having all-star like games, those first 9 games. And all of this while still trying to understand Coach Sandy Brondello's system. That was the biggest thing. And they were clicking. And then the ultimate thing happened. Jonquel Jones injures her right ankle. And I think that was literally kind of like the forecast of the beginning of the end for the season. I had the utmost pleasure of attending the Juneteenth game against the Phoenix Mercury, and that's when she re-injured her ankle, and it didn't look good then live. And what was the most important piece about that was it turned out that she ended up needing surgery for that same right foot, right ankle. And a lot of us didn't know that she was going through that. Of course she didn't mention it. um there wasn't too much of a exit interview this year like how it was last year, obviously. And even the year before that there wasn't too much of a exit interview. So I think that from that perspective, that was the beginning of the end, like the injury, and that's when the injury bug continued to rear its ugly head for the New York Liberty. Natasha Cloud missed some games due to a hip injury. Um, Sabrina Ionescu was looking, like you said, like an MVP caliber player, all W first team player, until she ended up having some of those bumps in the road after the All Star break. So I think that from an overall perspective, and then looking into the future, you could kind of see the writing on the wall when we got into August, when they just couldn't stagger enough wins to maintain a top 4 seed. And even with the optimism of them facing a Phoenix Mercury team as a 5th seed and winning game 1. A lot of people said, okay, now they're honed in, they're locked in. But the problem was that chemistry. And we also, forget that they had huge pickup before the trade deadline in Emma Messeman. That was a rumor after the All-Star break that once she returned from Europe that she would sign with the team. The rumor for the longest was the Minnesota Lynx, and she ended up deciding to sign with the Liberty, and she actually did a really good job. Statistically, she finished second, on the team, from a production standpoint. And I use this algorithm analytics website called Cerebro Sports, where they measure someone's productivity from an analytical standpoint and by using box score and video evidence. She finished at a CRAM of 9.2, and the person ahead of her was Breanna Stewart at a 9.8. And I mean, that makes sense, right? So what ultimately led to the demise of the New York Liberty season was the unfortunate lack of chemistry after the injuries just started to pile up on them, because you will have one person in, another person out, you'll switch. I mean, it was just atrocious if you think about it from that standpoint, on how they could not maintain the proper chemistry, just from an offensive and from a defensive standpoint, my, all while still having league averages and finishing in the top 5 in offensive ranking, as well as finishing number 2 in assists. So that's the biggest thing that I take away from this season. And as you mentioned, Jonathan Cole announced that Sandy Brondello was not going to be renewed. She moves forward. She's now the head coach of the Toronto Tempo. And I think again, we saw the writing on the wall from that standpoint even before the season started, because it was almost as if, okay, if they don't repeat, then Coach Sandy Brondello is going to be out of here. And if they didn't win last year before the season, Coach Sandy Brondello was going to be out of here. And I mean, any true basketball person could really see that writing on the wall. You saw that at time Natasha Cloud was brutally honest in saying a lot of times we just didn't know what we were doing on the court. And that was from an offensive standpoint and from a defensive standpoint. And that's the biggest concern that we look at with this New York Liberty team, because you know in 2024, offensively and defensively, they looked extremely good. And I know that we're missing an X factor in Benajelani Hamilton this year, right? She had the knee injury that occurred in Unrivaled, and it forced her to have surgery, and she didn't play this year. Okay, cool, fine. We understand that Kayla Thornton was not picked up, as a top 6 player, and she was picked for the Golden State Valkyries expansion draft, and she had an all-star season. So that also, brings, sheds some light on their situation. But they really, really, truly believed that with the exits of Akela Thornton and with Benajelani Hamilton not being there, they could pick up that slack in gaining that point guard in Natasha Cloud, in gaining an extra defender and shooter in Rebekah Gardner, and even picking up Stephanie Talbot in the middle of the season after Stephanie Talbot was released. So ultimately, it was just one of those seasons that luck was just not on their side. They had all of the luck in the world in 2024, but unfortunately, luck was not on their side in 2025. And you guys know that I'm brutally honest when it comes to, the New York Liberty. Maybe it was karma for what happened in the finals. I mean, I didn't want to say it in that manner, but I mean, I truly believe in karma. So, there were a lot of factors that resulted in the New York Liberty not being able to sustain success in 2025. So
It,
It is funny because I remember us saying like in our same recap, like if Sandy did not win, she was gonna get fired. And we talked about this a little bit in one of the other episodes, because I was saying that I was shocked Sandy was fired, but like I wasn't shocked because like one, I was praying on her downfall, but two, like I already knew it was coming, right? Um, but I think I was shocked that they actually went through with it. Um, and then that they really didn't have a plan in place. Um, in their search right now, they're kind of just like, and I feel like maybe I was on the opposite side of it, because I feel like when Jonathan Cole got out there and he was like, yeah, he did his post presser about, Sandy not coming back or not renewing her contract. It felt like so much like filler to me, and so much of a, I don't know where are we going, but Sandy had to go, which is fine if that's the perspective or the route you want to take. That's okay. Like we get it. We saw that the fit, it didn't work. We saw that it wasn't working. That was pretty clear to all of us. It wasn't working. And so if it's clear to us, it's clear to him. He clearly, and even in his press conference, you could kind of tell that he didn't even really like Sandy's, I ain't gonna say her vibe, but her system, because he's like, you know, I think he's taking the perspective of the same perspective that I had, was like, you have a Natasha Cloud, you have a Izzy Harrison, you have a Rebekah Gardner. Even if a JJ goes down, even if a Stewie goes down, you should still be able to maintain. And it makes me really curious, because I don't understand how you weren't able to. And I'm sure that's kind of what led him to be like, all right, we need to go in a different direction. But I am so perplexed at them not having anybody in mind. I feel like when they first dropped it, people were saying these are all the options. You know, we've heard some like Christy Tolliver whispers, and the guy from the Hornets. We've heard his name a couple of times. Um, but them to like feel like, for them to be in a position where we know we didn't like that last lady, but we don't really have a plan going forward. I feel like it's kind of strange to me. Like, I mean, I didn't expect them to fill her spot the next day, right? Because you do need to take seriously who you're gonna hire, especially given in this. I ain't gonna say next year's a critical year, but like, you're about to lose more bench talent, right? Like, you have to protect 6 people, and you're about to lose some of that. So your chemistry, I think, is now more important than ever. And so you do need somebody to be able to maintain that and get the girls to gel very quickly. But I think it just really bothered me that it feels like they didn't have a plan. And it seemed like everybody was kind of like, oh, it's okay. Like, he'll figure it out. Like, we're good. Like, we know where we're going. And it's like, I don't think y'all do. Because even with and maybe this is Sandy's fault, maybe it's not. But even the system this year, everybody thought, again, we walked into the year and being like, we can repeat basically. This team is probably better than last year's team. And we can do that, and y'all didn't have it. And so I'm curious about the what's next for them, because I don't think they're in a place to be like, oh, we're gonna blow it up. But also, what do you have, that feels like we can build off of this? Because your core 3 don't even feel like your Stewie, Sabrina, and Jonquel don't even feel like, there still feels like something's missing there. Because in what world do you play a playoff game and only one person scores in the fourth quarter? Like that, I don't even know if X's and O's could have fixed that, right? Like, that feels beyond a Sandy Brondello, which, like, again, she gonna be the scapegoat because they looked crazy, but also, what do you mean? You know what I mean? Y'all just won a championship. Y'all been playing with each other, at least most of y'all, for 2 years, 3 years. So there should be some sort of connection there. And it's like, that doesn't even feel like they have it. It feels like you said, when Juju, Lord, that's not the lady name. When JJ went down, it kind of felt like it fell apart. And it's like, it shouldn't have been that, and if it was going to be that, at least when you came back, that you would think you would just bounce back and it would come with it, but it never happened. So I'm intrigued by them not having a coach yet.
I feel like at least as far as Jonathan Cole, I hope I said his name correctly.
Yeah.
I feel like when listening to the things that he said in this post game or post season kind of review of the season or whatever, I was kind of like, whatever. I do think though that I can see why, given his history, why Liberty fans will just be like, oh, that nigga will figure it out. Because I feel like your job as a GM is to get the best team together on paper. And I feel like he consistently puts the Liberty in position to have a really good team on paper. Whether that ends up fitting together is a whole different role that I mean, of course he needs to find players that fit together, but like you go from getting Sabrina to getting Benaj Lane and getting Sabrina, and then um, you convince JJ and Stewie to get there, and the fact that he was able to get Natasha Cloud, Izzy, Rebekah Gardner, um, Emma Messeman, and like when they signed Emma Messeman, I was like, yeah, it's over. Like
I think everybody was that way. Yeah.
that's I feel like you did your job as a GM if everybody is like, damn, this shit over. It didn't work, obviously, but I can't really put that on. I could see why someone is like, yeah, they'll be fine because they specialize in greed. And I think that's what you're supposed to be as a GM is greedy. Like you're supposed to be like, I'm going to try to accumulate all the best players in whatever possible way I can. Like when the Aces signed Candace Parker, it was just like, I don't know how this is going to fit on the court. This is just the greatest player of now and the greatest player of the past generation. We're just going to put them together, and I hope to God they figure this shit out. And I mean, unfortunately, Candace Parker got hurt, but like they were figuring that shit out. So yeah, I he's a he's an interesting fellow when it comes to speaking, but it does seem like he has concepts of a plan. Like it that should be working up here. It may not come out the way it's supposed to, but I kind of feel him.
Yeah.
Um, because I didn't because when he was talking, and one of the things the coaching thing was kind of one thing. Again, we talked about how he probably would have fired Sandy, or he talked about basically how he would have fired Sandy had she not won that championship. Jay had made a great point on multiple episodes of like, if you're not sure whether this coach is fit for your team, it's probably not fit for your team. Like,
Yep. Yep.
the game is just a game. One of the things that I did think was strange, specifically that he was saying, where he was talking about the fit with Natasha Cloud and Sabrina,
Hmm.
um, it's, and I don't want to misconstrue his words, so I will quote them
He was
verbatim.
making Sabrina the scapegoat. I will say it for you. Sabrina's been
There's
used terribly, and he said it's
there,
Natasha's fault essentially.
there's something we have been, and that's that's something we have been and are currently discussing in terms of the Tosh pairing. I don't know that we really saw the off-ball production opportunities with Tosh in ways that were conductive or conducive to creating success for Sabrina. In terms of the partner, I mean, that's something we're really looking at. I think there's consideration of, is it time? Is it time for Sab to be at the one? So, one, it definitely seems like he views Sabrina as, this is your team, regardless of what is going on. This is your team. Stewie can be the best player on it. JJ can have a Finals MVP, but this is Sabrina's team. Two, like Jamae said, it did seem like he was more so scapegoating Tosh for that
Hmm.
not working, and I didn't feel like that was really fair. Not even I feel like I don't think that was fair. Um, because when you just have with the roster that he was able to accumulate
Yep.
and the talent that he was able to accumulate, in no way, shape, or form this Tosh historically, not even just last week's season, but historically, strike me as a player as a player of my someone is not going to work with her.
Right. Right.
That is
And
a yeah. Oh, go ahead. My bad.
no, no, I like that you mentioned that because what struck me as confused about that statement was, well, when the Liberty started 9-0, Sabrina contributed to a lot of the playmaking that Natasha Cloud brought, and that was Natasha Cloud putting pressure on the defense at the point of attack. And from a coaching standpoint, it looked good early because not because of Natasha Cloud's playmaking ability, but it was because of the high pick and roll setting of JJ and Natasha Cloud gelling, um, that led to open shots for Sabrina Ionescu. Now, yeah, it all fell to pieces when JJ went down, and I think that's the biggest gravity thing that a lot of people just don't understand about basketball. When there's one person that is the key factor, which everyone said JJ is the biggest factor in this entire puzzle of what we call 2025 New York Liberty basketball. When she's aggressive, it's curtains for everybody in the league. Legitimately went 33 and 0 or 34 and 0 whenever JJ recorded a double double. Like, it was no argument whatsoever. But when JJ isn't being aggressive, when JJ doesn't get the touches that she likes, of course, you know how JJ gets, and we can be open about that. She's not going to be as aggressive when she's not getting as many offensive touches. But going back to the Cloud and UNESCO dynamic, I really believe that once JJ went down, JJ was the gravitational pull that got away. And because Natasha Cloud is so good at the point of attack, it just lacked the necessary actions that JJ was providing versus what Stewie was providing. Because in the beginning, Stewie did not have the best production shooting wise to start off the season, but she was doing everything else. She was literally doing everything else. She was being a great screener. She was being a great playmaker. She was being a great defender. She just wasn't doing it, from a scoring standpoint. And I think that's part of what a lot of people kind of like miss from this entire ordeal, for lack of better terms. So, like you said, I think that his wordplay, I didn't necessarily think that that was the sole purpose or the sole reason why it wasn't successful this year. Again, a lot of it is that luck factor, and when you're missing that key piece that gave you the opportunity to be an unstoppable force, it just didn't work out moving forward. So hopefully, um, there's something more that can be looked into from a roster standpoint, because now you have to worry about 2026, and we're still in this whole CBA situation. They just approved a 30-day extension, for negotiations. Just about 96 or 97% of the league is going to be free agents in 2026. So we really don't know what 2026 is going to bring us, but I truly believe that what Jonathan Kolb tried to convey in using that context in the whole Taj Saab dynamic, respectfully, I think it was just a little bit disingenuous. But I'm also a reporter that is on the outside looking in, and he would know a lot more from I guess from just the organization standpoint than I would, because obviously he knew a lot more from an organizational standpoint with Sandy Brondello. Even though we all speculated, we all assumed. Um, so it just could be a lot more than what he reported. So
I'm Oh, Jay, go ahead. My bad.
No, I was just gonna say, I kind of wonder, like you said, with not knowing what 2026 is gonna bring, And it kind of ties into the Liberty not having a head coach yet, because you kind of wonder, with so much of the league being available, being a free agent, it's like, what identity do you want to sell your free agents on? You said, okay, we had this all-time great season in 2024. We won a championship. This season, like you said, we got kind of unlucky down the stretch, and we lost some of that. But now, what is it like? Let's say that you're able to bring back your core. What moves do you make on the margins to say, okay, this is a team that can get back to that level? Like, what are you trying to sell them on? And that's kind of why I'm intrigued to see what direction they go in terms of the coach that they look to bring in, because I think that's going to have an impact on the players that they're able to add.
Yeah. Um, that's a great way to put it, Jay. If I was looking at it from a GM perspective, and if let's assume Saab, Stewie, JJ aren't going anywhere. Stewie already said that she wasn't going anywhere. So that's one thing. That's going to be your, I guess your franchise player. Saab is going to be your franchise player. We can't say the same about JJ, but JJ seems as if she loves the idea of staying in New York, right? So let's just assume those are your three. Let's also assume that Benajelani Hamilton is going to be that fourth, because again, that was a missing piece in 2025, and she was eager to come back, even though unfortunately she wasn't able to in 2025. So let's just look at those four. The question now is, what coach is going to bring in a new shift in what the WNBA is going to look like moving forward? Because if you think about it, everything is pace, pace, pace. And New York finished like kind of like mid to late rankings from a pace standpoint. So that's going to be the next question. What coach are they going to bring in? Are they looking internally? Are they looking outside? Are they looking in the college rankings, which I don't think they are. And it will be a surprise if they bring someone in from the college rankings, because let's face it, it's New York. Everything has to be a big name, if you will. So, names to me like a Christy Tolliver works, because she will understand the players. She will understand the dynamics. Bringing back a legend in a Teresa Weatherspoon to me could work because of the veteran players that you would have and the accountability that she's going to put those players into account. Um, and I believe that there are a number of others. I feel like Coach Renika needs to come back. She left and went to Connecticut, um, and she will have her opportunity to coach in Unrivaled this winter. And I mean, I could see that as a potential audition for Jonathan Cole to say, okay, Renika knows, you know, she knows the players. She understands a system that they could possibly run. And I think that she could, be in addition. Andrew Wade was on that staff um this past year, and he did a great job in Unrivaled. Um, in last year's inaugural season. So I think there are a number of individuals that could be a great candidate, but it all starts with that coach. Because Stewie obviously is going to get a say. Saab is going to get a say. JJ is going to get a say. But it really depends on that same dynamic that we talked about. And let's just throw in Natasha Cloud. Let's just say that's that starting five. Natasha Cloud, Sabrina Ionescu, Benaja Laney Hamilton, Breanna Stewart, and Jonquel Jones. Like, let's just assume that's your starting five. Like, you will have to get those players to input and say, listen, how do you guys want to play? Let's look at what happened in 2024. Sandy Brondello, again, did a great job. They won, right? If they didn't win, we know she was going to be out of there. We know this because there was a tight window. But it really, really depends on what they will look like in 2026. And if we assume that that starting five will be back, right? Then it gets to a point of, okay, we're a year older. We're talking about Stewie, JJ, and Benijah. Yeah, you can also add Natasha as well. Because she's at that point, she'll be a 10-year veteran or an 11-year veteran, 10 or 11-year veteran. So it's going to get to a point where, okay, how are we going to navigate from a coaching standpoint? How are we going to navigate the way we like to play? Are we going to start? Are we going to be defensive minded? Are we going to be more offensive oriented? Things of that nature. What does our pace look like? We were ninth in pace last year. Can we get into the top three in pace this year? Defensive efficiency went way down last year. Can we get back up to defensive efficiency this year? Rebounding was atrocious in 2025 after leading the league in rebounding in 2024. So like those are so many different factors that you have to look at when you're hiring a new coach and more importantly assembling a roster. So I'm intrigued to see where that goes.
Well, this is a play GM. You already have, I mean, you've already picked your five. So who is your sixth? Who do you say, well, we're going to protect? I guess you technically don't, assuming they keep the same rules. Kathy was acting like she wanted to keep the same rules. I don't know how she's gonna do that, but look, I'm just listening to what she said. In theory, you actually don't have to protect Stewie and JJ. So you do technically have three open spots. Who do you think would be worth protecting? And I'm gonna take the assumption that Stephanie Talbot and Emma, I know they only played like part of the season, so I don't really know how that really works into them being a part of their roster, but we're gonna assume that they're a part of the roster.
So it's funny that you mentioned that because the first person that I think about is Niara Sabali. Like, what is the mystery? I think it's the mystery of Niara Sabali because again, she also have had injury and load management type situations this year, where she didn't play because they wanted to make sure that her knee, you know, could withstand a 44 game season. So load management for her is or has been very important. She was protected last year because of what she did in game five, in game three of the 2024 finals. So I see where Jonathan Cole could say, you know what, we need to keep Niara. Niara's young, she's active, she can be a great addition to this team. It didn't work. Let's just keep it a bean. It didn't work. Okay. It wasn't enough. So I don't know if he spins the block and say, I'm going to protect her this time. I just don't know if that's going to be something that's going to happen. I think he still would want to protect Maureen Johannes. I think that she, no matter what, is going to be who she is. She provides, she provides a backup point guard position. She's been there since the Westchester days. And I could see her, still being a key piece, to that squad. Now, when it comes to Stephanie Talbot and Emma Meesseman, just being honest, I don't think that they will be protected at all. Stephanie Talbot was a pickup after being waived. So there's no way they're going to keep her as a six. She's going into the expansion draft. She's probably on her way to Toronto, and let's face it, she's also probably a free agent as well. So there's no way they're gonna keep her. But Emma Meesseman, because she's been so in and out of the league, I'm not too confident that she would even consider um, signing early. She might go back to Belgium to prepare for the World Cup, because I think World Cups are in 2026. And we all know what that prioritization is in the current CBA from a prioritization rule standpoint. And she's always going to choose Belgium over the WNBA. Always. So she's probably not even thinking about the W right now. She probably back in Belgium. Um, so I think that in, of course, I'm just teasing, but that's the most important thing to me from an expansion standpoint. Um, I honestly don't know, with the coaching now being out of there, it's so hard to choose a six player. You could easily choose Niara Sabli, right? You could easily choose that. But again, what Niara Sabli are we going to get? Are we going to get the Niara Sabli that's going to be in street clothes for 24 of the 44 games? Or are we going to get the Niara Sabli that plays 36 of the 44 games and then wreaks havoc in the playoffs when we really need her? That's always the coin flip, from that standpoint. And the unfortunate thing is we just don't know. So if I were to give you a six, as a GM, that starting five that I mentioned, I think I'm protecting them. And if I had to choose somebody, dog it, I'm choosing Niar Sabali. I hate that I can't pick Marine Johannes because I would think that would be the one, but Niara,
Well, you could pick because so with their rules, if you've been cored more than once or if you've been cored twice, you cannot be picked up. So
gotcha.
Stewie and JJ would not be eligible to be picked up. So they're already safe. So you could take Niara, you could take Marine, and then you still have
One more.
yeah, you still have one more. You can have a Leonie, a Rebekah Gardner,
Oh,
and
does he
where's
know he's on mute?
Yeah, yeah. I was just saying, so if I had that opportunity, then
Kennedy
yeah,
Burke.
Niara and Marine for sure, I'm picking. Like
Okay.
if I have that opportunity to do that. But if I don't have that opportunity to do that, see you, Marine. And that hurts me. Like that hurts me to my core. It really does, because forwards are premium in this league.
Yeah.
Like it's very, very important to keep a forward, to keep a big. Like it's very, very, especially as versatile as Nia Sabali, because she can do a lot. She can score on the block, she can screen, she can shoot, like she can do a lot of good things. And again, it's just a health factor. So, yeah.
It's it's funny. This may be my hot take of the day, but I think even if I did not have to pick up Stewie and JJ, Marine, you gone, girl. I
You is
I
crazy.
It's crazy, right? I hate it. I hated to do it myself. But I mean, we're
may
talking about what, 8 years she's been with the organization?
and
So
maybe this is I think this is confirmation bias at its finest. Obviously, I can't watch every New York Liberty game. I'm sure you've seen more of her than I have. It feels like when I don't watch a Liberty game, she got the craziest highlights. she done scored 8 points in 30 seconds with all that jazz. When I do watch a whole game, I'm like, yo, she is tripping. And I mean that derogatorily. I'm like, what are you doing? Like it's so chaotic in like and you definitely need chaos to win. I think that is an important piece. But it seems like it's not a controlled chaos. Like it, yeah. I again, this could be. I think this is confirmation bias because I feel like I felt this way for a long time, but I can accept that I may be wrong. But I feel like if this was me and I was picking my six and I did not have to pick Stewie or JJ, I'm probably gonna do Sabrina, Niara, Leonie Fiebich, Stephanie Talbot, Rebekah Gardner, and Natasha Cloud.
You know that's saving Menage.
Oh, let's sub out Stephanie Talbot with
Yeah.
Benaja. My
Yeah, let's
bad.
get Talbot up out of
My
there.
bad. My
And
bad.
then, and what's funny is I didn't even talk about Leonie Fiebich, which Fiebich has been great for New York the past 2 years. So that's
That's
also
one of
another.
my favorite pickups that any
Yeah,
team has done in the last. Like the fact that Chicago gave her away for free, and then she ended up
yeah,
being a core piece in a championship team. I was like, damn, Chicago, this
yeah,
is all your fault.
yeah. Like and we we talked about everybody but Leonie Fiebich. And of course I want to give her her flowers because um obviously she doesn't talk much, but she was battling through injuries. She, I believe, had a rib injury that was really bothersome. But she played through it a lot. And obviously, they had Euro Cup in between. And she went off for like the 3.5 weeks or something of that nature. And I think she got hurt like right before that, and she played through it. Her production wasn't the best. She finished sixth on the team from a statistical analytical standpoint in CRAM. She was still extremely productive, but not as productive as she was in 2024. And a lot can also be contributed and attributed to now they had film on her. Um, that could also be a factor. So for me, not to even mention Leonie Fiebich, and I said I was keeping Niara and Marine. Leonie is that third person because I think Jermaine was talking about that. Like if you could have three, right? Leonie Fiebich would definitely be that third person. So it's definitely going to be extremely interesting to kind of to look at. Um, and again, forwards are a premium in this league. And I'm gonna tell you something, Leonie Fiebich, like Leonie is mad tall. Like for me to say, hey, Leonie Fiebich, this is Kevin Lewis of the 9450. Like that's like I didn't realize how tall and how versatile she was on the court until I saw her in person. Like beautiful sight to see because and again, she does her job. She doesn't come in, thinking that she's the best. She comes in, she does her job and she goes home. So I think overall, if we're looking at, I mean, obviously it was a huge, let's keep it a bean. It was a huge failure this year. It was a bust this year because it was supposed to go back to back. I um I went on with Dexter Henry when I was in New York. I went on the New York Post talking about that 4 game road trip. I said they were going to be 3-1. They end up finishing that road trip 1-3. They made me look like a fool, and I'm like, Come on, bro. Like at least give me 2-2. Like I got the Golden State Valkyrie game right. And I said that if they were to lose to anybody, they were going to lose to Seattle, which they did. And um I thought they would win against Phoenix because that was a get back game. They ended up getting blown out. And I also thought that they had Atlanta's number. And they ended up getting blown out. So I'm like, come on, like y'all made me look bad on a national front. Like I told y'all I was gonna be 3-1. Like I gave y'all 3 wins, but it didn't happen, unfortunately. And I think at that point, that's when I saw the writing on the wall, and that's when I knew that they weren't going to repeat, even with Emma Messeman coming back, respectfully, because at that point, Jonquel Jones wasn't the same player because she injured the same ankle twice. Like that is difficult to come back from, extremely difficult to come back from. Your elasticity in your ankle, it's gone after you rolled it more than once in a season setting. Like it's very, very difficult to come back from. And we saw kind of like the production or lack thereof after she came back because I think they gave her like 3.5, 4 weeks um for before she was, even able to return. And once she returned, here comes Stewie with the bone bruise. That was a 3, 4 week um uh uh injury. So that 8 week total was brutal for the New York Liberty, and I believe they sustained 500, maybe a game above 500, if anything. But that was kind of like the beginning of the end. If they didn't go 9-0 to start the season, who knows what would have happened. It definitely would have been much worse. So.
So a question that I had, like you mentioned how the Liberty struggled on the glass, and I just looked, the Liberty were dead last in the W in offensive rebound rate. And it's funny to me because I felt like that was the one thing that Emma Meeseman was able to help with because there were a lot of because the way that the Liberty offense was run, there was a lot of Jonquel at the 3 point line, which that's going to limit your offensive rebounding opportunities when your 6'6" center is behind the arc. And Emma Meeseman was able to mitigate that some, but overall, you're basically deciding to give up those opportunities. He said, we'll be okay with not taking these second chance opportunities. And we'll just have to play fast and get out of transition, which, like you said, the pace was up and down sometimes. So that ended up being an issue too. Is what type of what type of players should the Liberty be looking to add in free agency if you're able to like what can be done to mitigate that a little bit more? So where if we got Jonquel behind the arc, what do we need strong rebounders at every position, essentially?
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I think you need to still look within. But Nigel Hamilton, from a mid-range standpoint, has been a goddess at that spot. And a lot of what the success was last year in offensive rebounding was her ability to get to her spots in the mid range. See, a mid range shot is way different from a long range shot. With long range shots comes longer rebounds. And that was part of the problem with the New York Liberty this year. They were unable to sustain offensive rebounding because they took more 3 point shots, because they had more 3 point shooters this year as opposed to someone in the mid range like a Benajelani Hamilton. I think if I can think off the top of my head, they took less mid-range shots this year than they did in 2024, which I think the mid-range rate was like kind of like in the mid 40, high 50% rate, but like this year it was only like in the mid 30, literally almost high 20% rate. So like that's a huge disparity when you go from 2024 to 2025. And that's where your offensive rebounding comes from. If you're taking a mid-range jumper and it kind of rattles, off the rim, JJ is right there. She can just grab it, she can go right back up. And even with JJ taking 3-point shots or taking more mid-range shots in 2024 with her back behind the basket, you still had a Stewie that was crashing the glass. You had a Kayla Thornton that was crashing the glass, which she wasn't there this year. And you know what? We haven't even mentioned Kennedy Burke, who was incredible in the beginning of the season and shot like almost darn near 60% from three in the beginning of the season. But a lot of that issue just to me comes from within. And if you were to choose someone, from a free agency standpoint, I really don't know who would be someone that can complement that off the top of my head. But again, with using Benajelani Hamilton and losing that mid-range ability, you lost that ability to grab offensive rebounding because Stewie was really, really good in the mid range this year, but she was atrocious from the 3-point line. At one point, she was shooting like 26% from three. And that I don't know if that number went up in 2025. So I think the biggest problem was offensive productivity in the mid range. A lot of times people talk about the whole three and lay concept, and the mid range is now a bad shot, but the mid range actually puts you in better opportunities from a rebounding standpoint because the mid range shot gives you more opportunities to crash the glass because they're shorter shots. So what if it's 2 points? A mid range shot is a layup if you practice. I mean, Courtney Williams showed us that. I mean, all throughout her career, and she was incredible in the mid range this year. And you saw that when she did miss her mid range shots, you saw an Alana Smith, you saw a Jessica Shepard. Were able to grab offensive rebounds and and get more offensive opportunity for the Minnesota Lynx. So I think that's part of the problem that we saw in the New York Liberty this year, where there were not enough mid-range shots. Sabrina was able to get a couple mid-range shots off, but I think she kind of resorted back to 3-point shooting and things of that nature. Um, Natasha Cloud, obviously, she can hit a few in the mid range, but she's not as a consistent shooter as we would want her to be, and that's okay because she can do so many other great things on the floor. But that's part of the problem, and I think that with that being part of the problem, unfortunately, that's where the lack of rebounding, reared its ugly head for the New York Liberty. So that's the thing that they would have to kind of look into. But I, Jay, I don't know anybody that really likes New York right now to say, yeah, I'm coming to New York and I'm gonna grab some rebounds for you.
My
It's interesting that you mentioned the the narrative kind of being that the mid range is a bad shot because to me, I feel like that should incentivize teams to find players that can attack that area.
Hmm.
Because if you think about it, if offenses are saying we're not we're not focused on the mid-range shot, we're looking to get threes, we're looking to get to the rim, that means on a drive, the defense is going to play back into the paint, which is leaving that mid-range area open. So that means I need to be finding a player in my offense that can get to that spot and just rise up and hit that mid-range shot. because they're probably going to be giving you that more often than not.
Right. Right. And again, when we're talking about that lost art of the mid range, um, a lot of defenses, they really they build a wall now, if you will. You have some anomalies, but I think that ball movement is important, and a lot of times when you have great ball movement, you can produce, incredible shots. Dribble drive is also the most important thing that will generate shots. But now the dribble drive is being emphasized more because they want a lot more 3-point production. But when they feel like with the mid range shots, the dribble drive is clogged up because now instead of people spread out to the 3-point line, now you're quote unquote interfering because now you have 1 or 2 feet under the 3-point line, and now you're messing up the dribble drive. But a lot of that is just more so the sets that you run. um I've seen plenty of sets where horns is a notorious set in pro basketball, right? So if you have a horn set, you can run a simple pick and roll, with guard on one side, big on the other, and obviously the guard, the point guard is figuring out, who they're either going to pass the ball to or use the ball screen for, or if they even give the ball up and screen away for the opposite player to go dribble handoff into a jump shot. Like, that's instant offense right there. But now you have more 5-out sets where you're playing pass and screen away, getting into pin downs, into 3-point shots from the wing, dribble drive into 3-point shots in the corner, or dribble drive, and when you hit the lift rotates to the top of the key for a 3-point shot at the top of the key. So it's a lot of different factors that goes into it. But if you have a simple horn set, and if you're Asia Wilson, man, you hit that midi. Midi gets you championships. I don't care what anybody say. I know defense wins championships,
And
but
we
middies
just we
also give
just
you.
saw it.
We
We
just we
just
just
saw it.
we just witnessed it. We literally just witnessed it. So, nobody is going to tell me that a mid-range shot is a bad shot. And I think from a New York Liberty standpoint, because we saw less mid-range jump shots this year, ultimately that led to the lack of offensive rebounding, which ultimately led to the lack of um, defense. The defense getting back, like that was also a horrid thing that we saw with the New York Liberty this year in transition defense. So, man, it's so many things that could be improved, and I think it will get improved. I think that Jonathan Cole, obviously, he's not going to sleep until he assembles a great roster for 2026. But the biggest thing is who is going to lead this team in the first chair. That's the biggest thing. Who's going to lead this team? Um, so I can't wait to see what the news is. A lot of news come in around that December, January ish thing. I don't have any inside knowledge right now. I wish I did. But I can say this. Um, from a New York Liberty standpoint, though it was a disappointing season, I would say, covering them has always been a pleasure, has always been fun. And, I can't wait to see what 2026 holds.
It's funny that you mentioned the transition defense wasn't good, and it's interesting that the transition defense wasn't good considering how many threes that they took. Because you would think since y'all are already at the top of the key, it would be easier for y'all to get back into playing that. And I mean, I know you and Jay had a discussion on like how you would kind of fix the rebounding issue. Um, I'm also thinking like, do you get a player or players to help mitigate that? or do you tell Jonquel you need to get your ass back in that paint?
Yeah, Jonquel has to be yeah, she has to be aggressive. I
Because
agree.
I'm looking at her 2 point attempts. When she won MVP in 2021, she took 9.5 2 point attempts a game. Last season, she took 5.8, which is her third lowest since 2018 and 2016, which is her rookie year. Um, so and it was her third highest for 3 point attempts a game at 4 3 pointers a year. She's obviously a very good shooter. Like, I mean, she was like fourth in the league in 3 point attempts, but it's still like, how much of this do I really like? I appreciate it, but it's like, we mentioned this earlier. People have talked about her being the X factor for so long, and I think when they won a championship in 2024, she played the biggest she could. Like, that was some of the most aggressive down low play that I've seen from her. It was every game of that series was very ugly. It was very chippy. It was missed shots, getting a rebound, putting it back up, playing in this paint. And she did what she had to do to secure that. And it seemed like she's outside of that 2024 playoff run, the other years of her being on a Liberty, she's kind of ran from that. Um, which is like, I'm not entirely sure why, because again, it just seems like she's at her best, she's her most effective. It helps the team the most when she plays inside. And then she's just like, I'm a shooter. I'm gonna just be out here. Well, I'm gonna be out here with y'all. And it's like, I get it, but you also like 7'6". Just go ahead and hit this. That 42% from three look nice, but that turnaround hook shot, you probably shoot like 80% on that. That's Just go ahead and hit that. Just go ahead and do that for me. Just at least a couple more times a game.
Yeah, and again, I think I can attribute a lot of her lack of aggressiveness to being afraid to be too aggressive because of that ankle. Now that I've seen what I've seen in the past, 2 months, as she announced that she had surgery, um, but even with that, like, you still have to be aggressive. I've I've been I've been this huge advocate for Jonquel for so long, and she always come back, from a non-aggressive standpoint, in my opinion. Um, and I just think that, as I think her health goes as far as her aggressiveness goes. If she's like super healthy, then we don't have to worry about it. But if she's not healthy, then we're just gonna get the JJ that we've seen, the non-aggressive JJ that we've seen. A healthy JJ is an aggressive JJ, but a non-healthy JJ is just going to be a little more passive. And I don't personally, as a fan, I don't like that. Um, but I also have to look at it from her perspective as well. And if I'm thinking about it too much, then I'm probably doing the same thing, respectfully. Like, if I continue to hurt my ankle, I'm just going to, for like, it's a athlete's it's in an athlete's mind to just think about not getting injured when you've been injured over and over and over again. That's the unfortunate thing, but hopefully we get, a full recovery from JJ, and hopefully she shuts me up next year. I'm looking forward to being quiet, as far as her aggressiveness goes. But I also have to hope that she does it. Because again, I've I've publicly said that JJ has to be more aggressive. And when she's not aggressive and when she's not being physical, like she shuts down. And I just don't like that as a player.
Uh, well, one of the last things that I was going to ask about, or we were going to ask about, is we always ask about draft stuff, but
They ain't
the
got no
Liberty
picks.
do not
They ain't
have
got no picks.
any
Nah,
picks.
they
So
let go of that. So
they said, and I kind of understand, and I think I mentioned this on the Aces episode we did, but like most of these top teams do not play their draft picks. It's like if you can get a really, really good one that you have time to develop, it's fine. But most of these teams do not have time to develop players. Like the Lynx ain't have time to develop Diamond Miller or Alyssa Peely. Um, the Aces ain't really have time to develop Kate Martin or Aaliyah Nye. Yeah, Kirsten Bell scraped by every year by the grace of God. Uh, the Liberty ain't have time to develop who did they draft last year? Um,
They had Marquisha and Jalen who
yeah,
got
Marquisha
let go.
and
Yeah.
and
Jalen
they ended up
Sherrod.
tra-
Like
yeah, they
it's
ended up
just
trading.
like the Mercury are the only team that I have top team that I have seen anytime soon that have used their uh rookie like any type of way. So yeah, I'm kind of more looking to the future and I'm interested to see if they're really trying to put the keys into Sabrina hands, what that looks like from a roster constructor standpoint, and in the future when JJ's not there and Breanna Stewart's not there, what are they going to surround her with?
Yeah, I definitely agree. That's going to be the biggest thing. So what's interesting about the New York Liberty is the New York Liberty has all the resources. So free agents are going to want to consider New York. That's what they have, on the table. So that's going to be very interesting. The other interesting thing is, even with the announcement of Sandy Brondello being not being retained, who are they going to pick as a coach? Like that's the most important thing to me now. Who are they going to pick as a coach? Personally, do not care what the roster looks like. I need to see what the coach is going to look like because to me the coach dictates the roster, not the roster dictates the coach. Respectfully. So if they can find the right coach, I think that they should be okay moving forward. I hope they would be okay moving forward. I'm still have to report on them, but I hope they be okay moving forward.
What, Jay, would you like to say the line?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I believe all hearts and minds are clear.
Well, again, Kevin, thank you for joining us. This has been another episode of Pull Up 3. I am Paragon Don,
I'm Jermaine.
I'm Jay Trent.
And I'm Kevin K. Lewis. I appreciate you guys for having me on.
and we are out.